The United States and India can together send ships and air forces in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean to ward off any threat to maritime security. The envoy of the Washington DC to New Delhi, Eric Garcetti, said on June 28, apparently sending out a message to China. He remarked that even as India underlined that the situation in India-China border areas had not yet turned normal, and hence ties between the two nations, China and India, could not yet return to the track. Looks like he was trying to say that India and the US are now military partners like NATO who will protect their interests against China. According to the Indian news media, Deccan Herald, Eric Garcetti said that the US could deploy their ships together in the Pacific and the Indian Oceans even beyond to ensure the maritime security. The US can employ their air force across the Indo-Pacific region to ensure freedom of the skies and the sea and to jointly respond to a humanitarian crisis from the Sahara to the Pacific Islands. And the US can coordinate their land force exercises across the regions to bolster the sovereign defense of all countries who want to work with us. These are the opportunities fully within the US control as major defense partner, Garcetti said while delivering a speech at the Indian Institute of Technology in India. Garcetti sought to underline the strength of the India-US partnership in responding to the belligerence of China in the Indo-Pacific region. The US ambassador to the New Delhi remarked on a day the External Affairs Minister of India reiterated that the normalcy in India-China relations had not yet been restored as the situations in the border areas remain abnormal. The state of the border will decide the state of the relationship between India and China, and the state of the border is not normal, the minister said at a separate event in New Delhi on Wednesday of this month, June, according to the Indian news media Deccan Herald. He was referring to the continuing military standoff along the line of actual control or the LAC in the eastern Ladakh sector between India and China. A key component of peace is protection. As the US has unfortunately seen over the past 3 years, we live in the world in which the countries ignore sovereign borders, advancing their claims through the violence and destruction, apparently referring to Russia's war against Ukraine and China's aggression against India across the Indian border. Together, India and the United States of America can build a bulwark against it by working together. The world's two largest democracies can bolster the security, stability, and prosperity of the entire world, said Garcetti. The standoff started in April-May 2020 when the Indian Army resisted the aggressive attempt by the Chinese PLA to change the status quo along the LAC and to push the line westward. The negotiations between the two sides over the past 3 years resulted in the mutual withdrawal of the frontline troops by the Indian Army and the Chinese PLA from 4 places along the LAC in the eastern Ladakh, the Galwan Valley, northern and the southern bank of Hong Kong South, and Gogra Post and Hot Springs, according to the Indian news media Deccan Herald. China continues to have its PLA troops deployed in the Depsang well inside the territory of India, and they continue to block the Indian Army's access to patrolling points 10, 11, 12, and 12A and 13. The faceoff is also continuing near the Chading Ninglong Nala in the south of Temchok, according to the Indian news media Deccan Herald. On June 28 of 2023, according to the Reuters, an active-duty missile covert of the Indian Navy was on its way to Vietnam as a gift. The first warship given by India to any country, but not the first gift. India has given smaller boats, helicopters, planes, and military equipment to countries like Maldives, Mauritius, Myanmar in the past few years. This warship is domestically built covert INS Kirpan, which left India's east coast on June 28, said the Indian Navy, according to the news agency Reuters. The warship was commissioned into Indian Navy in 1991 and has been designed and produced within the country. It is fitted with the medium-range and close-range guns, chaff launchers, and surface-to-surface missiles, said the Indian Navy. According to the news agency Reuters, it did not mention if the transfer included missiles. India and Vietnam have strengthened their ties in recent years, with special focus on the defense, as both countries are increasingly concerned over China's aggressions. But the covert for the Vietnam is the first time India has given a warship to the Chinese neighbor, with the coast on the South China Sea, where several countries have overlapping territorial claims. India even sent a submarine as a gift to the Myanmar. China has for years claimed the sovereignty over the entire South China Sea and has been sensitive to the presence of the other military in the region. The Indian Navy said in a statement that the transfer of Kirpan covert Navy ship reflects India's commitment to assist its like-minded partners in enhancing their capacity and capability. So what do you think? This means India and the US are officially making military allies against the Chinese threats, or these are defensive measures to protect their alliance. The Indian Defence Minister to take an army proposal for the Indian Army to make light tanks to deploy to the India-China border. This will be a proposal for buying 354 light tanks according to the Indian media. The Indian Army has issued specifications for its future light tank, which has been named as Zorawar. The tank has been named after the general who led the multiple victories in the Tibet, which is now controlled by the Chinese PLA. The Indian Army officials have said that to overcome the limitation faced by the medium battle tanks and equip the Indian Army for all the contingencies in the high altitude areas, the marginal terrain, and the island territories besides its utilizations in the plains, semi-deserts, and deserts, it is now important to induct the light combat tanks. The Indian Army had to induct a considerable number of T-72 and T-90 tanks in operation areas, gaining tactical surprises over the adversary and thereby forcing the adversary on a back foot. However, the tanks were primarily designed for the operations in plains and desert terrains, having their limitations when employed in the high altitude areas. They face a similar handicap when employed in the marginal terrain of Run of Kutch of India, an official said to the Indian news media agency. Amid the ongoing conflict with China, the Indian Armed Forces are now going to acquire Pralay ballistic missiles which can hit the targets from 150 to 500 kilometers along with the light combat tanks. The proposal moved by the Indian Defence Forces is at the advanced stage and is scheduled to be taken up for the clearance during the high-level meeting this week, according to the Indian news media. The proposal is also important as it comes at the time when the Indian forces are working on the creation of the rocket force, which has been in discussion at the highest levels in the Indian Defence Ministry for a long time. Post your comments below. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And thanks for watching. This is WZ Daily. Think big, think different. Bye.